For those of you who don't know, Reverend Joan Steadman was one of the initial founding group of people that, together with Michael Beckwith, co-created Agape International Spiritual Center. And she is the senior minister of Agape Bay Area and was the former senior minister of Oakland Center for Spiritual Living for many years. And that's where I first met her. So I'm so glad you're here today with us, Reverend Joan.
Thank you, David. Thank you for having me back. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you, Jesse, for the beautiful music. Thank you, Denise and Barbara, for both what you brought forth, and just everybody. It's so great to be with you again. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I begin, with gratitude, and I dropped my iPad, which I never use anyway. I don't know why I even bring it with me. Anyway, so today I'm talking about courage in the small things. A few years ago, a minister friend of mine asked me to speak about that, and I thought, wow, what an interesting topic. And I love this topic, and I resurrected it, figuring this is a season of resurrection, right? So I resurrected this topic. I've been talking about, during this time of resurrection and Passover, I've been talking about living our infinite possibilities, about the infinite possibility, and how during Passover time, Moses led the people. He did what seemed impossible to him. He didn't think it was possible. And then in terms of Easter, the resurrection, people, I'm sure, didn't think it was possible that Jesus, or his name in Aramaic is Yeshua, that he could resurrect himself. And so I look at that and go, we believe in a teaching that says that we can live the impossible. That we can live the impossible. And we can do that when we enter a particular realm of consciousness, that realm of the infinite, that realm of the eternal, that realm of the changeless, the birthless, deathless one. Ernest Holmes, in the Science of Mind textbook, there's a part in the chapter on finding the Christ, where he just says this beautiful poem. I mean, he wrote it. And it goes, part of it goes, I am. What more can I say? I am. It is enough. From out of the depths of me, I am. In and around me, I am. And then it goes on for a little bit longer. And the point being that that's the essence of every single one of us, this I am presence that is all power, all presence, like we were affirming before, all joy, as David beautifully said, beauty, that each one of us is beauty, that all of this, and so as I was sitting with the idea of living our infinite possibilities, I thought, what do we need to do this? And it came to me real clearly, courage, that I don't know about you, but sometimes when I get a glimpse of something that seems really big to do, or maybe even not so big, just something that perhaps puts a little bit of fear in me, I need courage. I think all of us need courage in order to really live our full potential, to be honest. Because if I'm living my full potential, I'm going to be butting up against things that perhaps put a little bit of fear in me, that perhaps seem hard to me, that seem impossible to me. And I know that as I look back at my life, I look at the many things I have done, and not all big things, but so many of them seemed like things I couldn't do. When I was, when I was a nun for 9 years, a Roman Catholic nun for 9 years. And when I was in my first job teaching out in the field, they would call it, they, being brand new and young, I think they figured I was really good at all sports. And so one of my jobs, and fortunately it was in elementary school, was to coach all of the teams, all of the athletic teams, the basketball team, the softball team, the volleyball team. Well, I was comfortable with volleyball. The rest of it, I was not. I wasn't good at either of the other. I was always the last one chosen for the softball team. Has anybody else here ever had that experience? Yeah, well, we don't particularly want her on our team. But anyway, so I end up coaching it, and it wasn't an option to say no. And I was scared. I was scared, you know, and yet there was something in me that knew how to make it happen. Now, did I know the ins and outs of all those sports? No. Volleyball, I knew real well. I had been on volleyball teams, but I didn't. But I made it happen. I found people on the team that were really good and that knew how to do it. You know, so there's something in us. I just use that. That's come to me. I don't know why, but as an example right now, that's come to me as an example of we have within us what we need when the call comes. Now, courage in the small things, that's a small thing, relatively small things. Sometimes I think when we think of courage or courageous acts, we think of epic acts. We think of people like Martin Luther King Jr. I do anyway. We think of people like Cesar Chavez. We think of people like Helen Keller. We think of people like Jesus the Christ. We think of some of those Old Testament people, Daniel in the lion's den, or David and Goliath is a traditional one. You know, we think of these people that have done huge acts. And what I'm here to say today is that it can be small actions that we exhibit great courage in, you know. Is that Mother Teresa talks about, you know, it's about not how big the act is, but how much love we bring to it. I would say in terms of working through our fears and so forth, it's not so much how big it is, it's what am I bringing to it? Am I bringing the big consciousness of I can do this, not I of myself, but the presence within me can do all of these things. So we're here today to look at courage in the small things because I really believe that when I can be courageous in the smaller things, if and when the big one comes, you know, if and when the big one comes, not the earthquake, but a big opportunity for courage, I'll be prepared because I will have that story. I will have that resilience within me. I will have that courage within me. I will have that strength within me. I will have that power within me. And so that's what I'm here to talk about today. And the first thing I want to say to you is, I know I've said a couple of other first things, but the first thing I want to say to you is that you already have exhibited a lot of courage in your life. When you really think about it, I invite you right now to think about your life, to think about all that you've moved through. Think about even just yesterday or the day before. I'll bet there were times when you did something courageous. I'll bet there have been times recently where there has been something fearful in front of you to do, and you've done it. So think about that right now. You know, what have you done? Has there been a time, I'm thinking for myself right now, um, there's been an opportunity for a conversation that hasn't been real comfortable, that maybe put a little bit of fear into me, maybe a little bit of a confrontational conversation. That's fear. That's fear. That's fear. That's courage that would meet that would say, okay, you know, I'm gonna step up to this rather than avoid it because I want to strengthen that courage muscle within me, because I want to be all that I can be. And this is an opportunity. We all know that challenges are opportunities for us to grow in consciousness. So what are some of those? And right now, I'm going to invite you, if you feel comfortable with it, just put something in the chat about something that you have done. It can be any time in your life. It can be recently. Something that you have done, a fear that you had, and then what you did. Did you overcome that? Did you meet that fear? So I'm going to invite you right now, anybody who wants to put anything into the chat. Let me see what's going on. Not yet, but I'm sure somebody will at some point. Tough conversation with a coworker. There you go. Oh, wow. Attending graduate school. Congratulations. Ending up, oh, the conversation with a coworker ending up being a positive. Being with a beloved while they crossed over. Yes, yes. Takes courage to do that. A lot of people don't know how. And the reality is when you're being with somebody that's crossing over is just being with them, basically. Yeah, being with a beloved while they crossed over. Um, I, I'm thinking of someone in our congregation. I asked her to lead a group, and she said yes, and she wasn't sure she could do it. I knew she could, and I knew that she had all the skills prepared for it. But she had shared with me that that was a scary thing for her, and yet she said yes to it. So I'm asking you to think of these things because to show you that you have already done things that are courageous, you know? Maybe just walking down the street and smiling at someone is overcoming a fear, is being courageous for you. So just look at that, yes, you have already done things in your life and give yourself acknowledgement for it, you know? Give yourself acknowledgement. I was the oldest of 7 kids, and I frequently had to do things that were scary to me that I didn't know how to do. I won't go into all of that, but I'm sure we've all had experiences like that. Just to show you that within you, one of those divine qualities within you is courage. And by the way, courage comes from the Latin word, it's also from the French word that means heart, you know? So courage is bringing your heart to something. It's believing in your heart that you can do something. And so bringing that. So what a lot of people think, and I don't know if so many think it anymore, but what a lot of people have thought in the past is that courageous people, brave people aren't afraid. And you know what? That's not true. It's not true at all. In fact, some of the most courageous people are some of the people who have had the most fear. I read something recently in Pema Chodron's book. Um, I love this book, When Things Fall Apart. Anybody familiar with that book? When Things Fall Apart, Heart Advice for Difficult Times. But she says in that book, when I was first married, that my husband said to me, "You're one of the most courageous people I know." And she said to him, "Well, how can that be?" I'm paraphrasing. "How can that be? Because I'm afraid. I get afraid." He said, "How?" Yes, he said, "But you're courageous because you're a complete coward, and yet you always go ahead and do it." You know, you do it anyway. You're a complete, so he knows the fear she feels, and yet she goes ahead and does it. And so that's it for all of us. It's not that we don't get over being fearful. At one time in this teaching, I really thought that that was what I had to attain somehow, that I wasn't going to be fearful anymore. And it made sense to me because if I know God is my life, if I have that infinite faith in God, then why would I need to be fearful? Well, it didn't prove that way in my in my ministry, frankly. Some of the most fearful times in my life have been during my ministry. And yet, opportunities to meet those fears, opportunities to grow, because it's grown me. Though fear has grown you, think about that. Your fears are your opportunity for growth. They aren't something to be avoided. They're something to be looked at and then worked through. I have a quote here by Eleanor Roosevelt. She said, "You gain strength, confidence, and courage by every experience in which you really stop to look fear in the face." In other words, don't ignore it, stop and look at it. You must do the thing which you think you cannot do. Isn't that interesting? You must do the thing which you think you cannot do. And I'm sure Eleanor Roosevelt, I'm sure she did a lot of things that she thought she could not do. And yet that grows us, that strengthens us. There's so many reasons we say we can't do things, right? I know I can think of reasons. I remember when I was really young, I was I didn't want to look foolish. I didn't want to look stupid. And that kept me from doing things. It kept me from even participating in class lots of times, raising my hand and speak. I remember as a child thinking, oh, I really don't want to look stupid here. There are so many reasons that we give ourselves. I'm not smart enough. I'm too old. I want to tell you right now, just erase that one. I'm too old. No, you are not too old. You are never too old. I'm too young. I don't have the talent. Whatever it is, I'm not enough, period. There's so many reasons we give ourselves. That ego mind is such a trickster. That ego self, that small self that simply doesn't believe we're divine, that we're godly. And it gives us all these reasons why we can't do certain things. And the reality is, if you have been given a desire in your heart, it's yours to do, no matter how scary it is. When I left Oakland Center for Spiritual Living, this is kind of a silly thing to say. Don't ever say this kind of thing to yourself. I said, I'm not going to be a senior minister anymore. That's just not, I have my life carefully planned out here now. I'm going to do practitioner sessions. I'm going to write. I'm going to, maybe do some things that I've been wanting to do for a long time. Well, guess what? Here I am again as a senior minister, because, through circumstances that I didn't choose, it came up. I was asked, and immediately the answer was, yep, I'm supposed to do this. Now, I never wanted to do it again. And I didn't want to minister. I didn't want to minister in a startup. David might be able to relate to this. I didn't want to minister in a small startup because I knew how much work that would be, and do I have the skills? I had the skills in a larger community. I had a staff, I had all this stuff, do you see what I'm saying? So there was like, okay, can I really do this? And can I bring to it all I need to bring to it? But the answer was yes. So, okay. So just keep meeting those fears. Just keep courageously going forward, no matter what. You have it in you. And here's what your courage can be based on. It can be based on the reality that first and foremost, God is your life, that that the universe absolutely loves you as its own. You are its own. You've been created in its spiritual image and likeness. It's always there for you. It always supports you. It never abandons you. And this universal law, Ernest Holmes called it the law. It can be, the great I am presence that shows up as love and law. This law responds to you, and it knows how to respond to you in your unique way. See, I don't have to know how to do all this. I don't have to know how. You don't have to know how. What you need to know and what I need to know is the what. What am I to do? What's the divine idea here? What's the vision here? What's the idea here? And then when we know the what, and we place our attention on it, and we imagine it done, then this law, it knows how. It goes into motion. It's like, okay, I got something to work with here. And it's always helpful too to move our feet a little bit in the direction of it, because that says to the law, yeah, she knows what she's doing. She means it. So what my courage is based on is knowing that God is my life. Very simple. I'm a really simple person, God is my life. All of the power of the universe is within me. And what I'm talking about for myself, I'm talking about for you. All of the power in the universe is within me. The essence of the divine is within me. And this amazing law of life always, always responds to me. It without fail. Because again, I am life's own. Life responds to me because I am its own. You are God's own. Spirit has so loved and cherished its idea of you. So loves and cherishes its idea of you that it has brought you forth into existence. Be with this for a moment. And it has brought you forth to be it as its way of expressing on this earth plane, of its way of singing its own song, of speaking its own truth, of loving in its own way, your unique way. you have what you need. You see, we all do, because we are so cherished. I love the word cherish. We are so cherished in the heart of the divine. And so it's knowing that. And the more you know that, the more courageous you are. Again, heart. You know it in your heart. You know, it's not something you just know up here. You know down here in your heart. And so the courage is based on that absolute faith and trust in the universe. Again, Ernest Holmes talks about not only the faith in God, but the faith of God. Be with that for a moment. You know, we are called to have the faith of God because we know. We are metaphysicians, we are mystics. We know our divinity. We know who and what we are. We can have absolute faith. And what that means, the faith of God, to me it means I see as God sees. I see you as God sees you. You know, I see you as perfection itself. I see you as wholeness itself. And of course, if I'm seeing you that way, I see myself that way. That's our inner work. And for a lot of us, just seeing ourselves in that light is a lifetime's work, frankly, you know. And we just keep working it and working it. We come together in spiritual community to remember it. We hang out with the spiritual friends of like-minded heart to remember it. We pray with each other to remember it, to remember who and what we are, and to deepen our faith in that, and to deepen our trust in the universe. To know that there's always a safety net, and that's God, that's spirit. There's always that safety net. So we can know this, you know, in every instant in our life, in the big things, in the small things. And today we're talking about the small things. And sometimes I've had the experience, I always have to speak from my own experience. I've had the experience of some of the small, what the world would call small things, feel big to me. Have any of you ever had that? You know, it can feel big to me to have that difficult conversation. It can feel big to me. I remember when I was working for people in the not the corporate world. I never worked in the corporate world, but when I was working for a company, it was a hard thing to ask for a raise. You know, just those little things are sometimes challenging, and they stretch us and they grow us. And eventually we find that we are living our infinite potentiality. We are living the fullness of life because we have said yes, because we've been willing to walk through our fears, because we've been willing to move through difficult times and not just give up, you know, because that's always an option, is to give up. Well, I'm afraid to do that. I don't think I'm going to do that. And I've done that too, you know. I've had times when I've done that, and it's fine, and it's a missed opportunity, which I'm assuming that I've caught up with later in life, you know, that I have said yes to all my opportunities recently. So, I want to just give you a little list of things that are opportunities for courage that you might not usually think of as opportunities for courage. So, and then, by the way, in the chat, put what you think of. By the way, I'm noticing over here, David DeLula said, I know someone who's afraid of public speaking, but she volunteers to give presentations anyway. I just want to come back to some of these that I missed before. So public speaking, that's one of the scariest things for most people. It was for me. It still can be for me, you know, especially if I'm not accustomed to the group I'm speaking to. So that's, if you have a chance to stand up and say something, just do it, say it. What I've discovered over and over and over again is people are very loving and appreciative. Here's courageous, be yourself. Be yourself and own it, you know? Be yourself, be transparent, be vulnerable, own who you are, and be okay with that. Another one, standing up for someone or some group that's being picked on, you know. I have a granddaughter who when she sees somebody being bullied, she stands up for them. I think actually that's a pretty big act of courage because she's in high school, and that's pretty courageous. Stand up for somebody, you know. Stand up for an ethnic group. You hear a joke that does not settle right, that you know is racist in some way. Stand up, say something. Here's one. Do any of you have a challenge saying no when you're asked to do something? I have always had that challenge. um, say no. And then the flip side of that is sometimes it's courageous to say yes. Know when it's courageous to say yes, and know when it's courageous to say no. Because a lot of people have trouble setting boundaries. And so setting boundaries, that's another act of courage. Grow and learn. Step into the unknown. Learn something new. That's an opportunity to be courageous because you have to change. See, I would say probably most acts of courage require some kind of change in us, but that's a whole other talk. So, you know, am I willing to learn something new? Am I willing to learn a new sport? Am I willing to learn a new hobby? And am I willing to whatever it is? Am I willing to stretch and to grow? It takes courage lots of times. All of this takes courage, you know, because we have to let go of something. Love yourself. Love yourself. Takes courage. Take up space. Do any of you ever have trouble? I used to have huge trouble with this. And that is taking up the space that is yours in a room. Like, oh, I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to be little old me, you know. Be willing to take up the space that is yours to take up. Listen and be present to people, even people who have differing opinions, differing political viewpoints. Can you just listen and be with them? There's somebody in our family that has very differing political viewpoints, and I've gotten to learn that, you know. I don't have to make a case for my side of the story here. I can just listen. So all of these are ways that you can be courageous, and there are so many more. There are just loads of them. And one of the most courageous things you can ever do is to commit to transforming your life. Commit to transformation. Commit to your spiritual growth and unfoldment, because that's going to require, those of you who have done this, and I'm guessing it's most of you on this call, if not all of you, that requires change. That requires growth. That requires, when you hit certain levels of transformation, it requires things that might be fearful, a little fearful, a dark night of the soul perhaps, a challenge in your life that just seems overwhelming, and yet it's yours because you're qualified for it. You are qualified for whatever challenge comes your way. So know that any challenge and a lot of those are fearful things, you know, and they're opportunities for your greatest joy and your greatest fulfillment. That's what I know to be so. So what I'm going to encourage you to do today, encourage you to notice, first of all, notice all the ways that you are already courageous. Notice the ways that you move through your fears already, and you do it without even thinking about it because you've been practicing it all your life. Think about that, you know, and then think about what are some ways that I notice all around me that perhaps I'm a little bit fearful, but I can move through anyway. And move through those. Move through those. And then know that you are absolutely loved by life itself. You are absolutely supported by the entire universe itself. Remember the greatness that you are. Sometimes that's the most courageous thing we can do. Remember that you are great, you are magnificent, you are awesome, and all of the courage of the universe is within you. All of the faith of the universe is within you. All of the trust of the universe is within you. Be willing to look any fear right in the face and just to say, I can move through this. And again, remember, it's not you of yourself. It's the presence within you that does it. See, that's what gives me courage. I know that Joan of herself can't do a whole lot of this, but I do know that the spirit in me is big enough to accomplish it. And so I just trust in that. Remember that. It's so powerful. You are so powerful. You are so awesome. You are so magnificent. You are God's own beloved, made in its spiritual image and likeness. A whole other talk is coming to me now, so I think I better stop and pray. Let's do a prayer together. So just allow yourself to take a breath. Trusting in that presence, trusting in that power, acknowledging that that's all that there is. God, God, and only God. One presence, one power, one life, one love, one intelligence. One. That quantum field out of which everything emerges. That center that has no circumference, for it's the great all in all. I'm grateful to know this life. I'm grateful to know it as my very life and to know it as the life of everyone on this call. That each and every one of us is spirit in the flesh, an incarnation of pure spirit, made in the spiritual image and likeness of the divine. I'm so grateful to know this. And therefore I know that within each and every one of us, there is all of the love of God, the peace of God, the joy of God, the abundance of God, wholeness, vitality, well-being. All of this is the spiritual reality of us. And as we place our attention on this reality, it takes form. For that's God's desire, to take form as us on this earth plane. And so I'm claiming it. I'm claiming the courageous life for each and every one of us, a life of fulfillment, a life of joy, a life of living our infinite possibilities. How grateful I am. And to know that it is never we that doeth it. It is always the presence within that accomplishes everything. And therefore we can indeed say all things are possible. All that comes to me because I am qualified, I am equipped, I am ready. I am pure spirit in the flesh, here to do and live my dream, my vision. I am ready to do it. The courage is within me. I say yes to it, and I give thanks for it. So in great gratitude now, I release this word. I release it into that law that always says yes, that I can depend upon, and it knows how to bring it into manifestation in my life. So I let it go now. I surrender it to Spirit and I let it be with great love, and so it is. Amen.
Whew. Thank you, Reverend Joan. So courage. This song is a little bit about courage in the face of the unknown, because that's what fear is always about, the unknown. So here we go. There in the center of my soul, I can feel you all around me, something holy and untold, but I hear it perfectly. Somehow, in the deepness of now, I can see I was made in the image of love. found books and words and songs at the gate of all my longing, leaving certainty behind. I take one step and you come running, and it's clear in the sweetness of here I can see I was made in the image, I was made in the image of love. I was made in the image, I was made in the image of love. Here and now I can see I was made perfectly. I was made in the image, I was made in the image of love. Love, love, flow like water. Love, love, move in me. Oh, love, love, flow like water. Love, love, move in me. Oh, love, love, flow like water. Love, love, move in me. Oh, love, love, flow like water. Love, love, move in me. I was made in the image, I was made in the image of love. I was made in the image, I was made in the image of love. Here and now I can see I was made perfectly. I was made in the image, I was made